I'm here to do a webcast to influence and help people to get into the creative industry. I think probably the key advice was picked up by Heather from the BBC when she said that, you know, courage is a big part of you know, getting out there and doing anything in the creative industry. So and I kind of picked up from courage, I sort of said vulnerability is important, because you're going to get a lot of stick thrown at you, and you're going to get a lot of doors slammed in your face, and it's going to be tough out there sometimes, but you've got to be really resilient, and you've got to really think about your preparation, you know. So for example, if you're going to write a letter to someone, or you're going to write an email to someone, make sure the grammar's good. You know, those types of things may not be picked up by the people that you're sending your emails or your letters to, but they may be. It's better for you not to lose out on an opportunity through something like a full stop or a comma. I've loved it, yeah. I mean, I actually thought there was going to be some people here, so it was kind of a surprise to just be just the webcast, and there wasn't any live, because I'm usually in front of a live audience being a live performer. But it was really great and so professionally done. And the ones that I've done before have just been kind of a mic in the middle of the table. But this was like a proper. This was like being in a TV studio. In fact, it was a TV studio. So I was, you know, things have come a long way since I was doing breakfast television and stuff. So yeah, it's been brilliant. And what I've really enjoyed as well is meeting the other creatives on the panel, because they've had so much to say. And I've learned an awful lot, and yeah, the 5 schools asked some brilliant questions that were tuning in, or what's it called now, webbing in. So yeah, it was really good. That sounds weird, webbing in, but yeah, it's been great. So I didn't go to university. I left school when I was 16. I went travelling, and I pretty much worked flat out when I was travelling to sort of sustain my travelling. And then when I came back, I'd already been in a band when I was sort of 15, 16 with a school band. It was a terrible name called Funky Love Children. Terrible name, and of course you can't survive on a name like that. So I came back, and the guys that I'd been in the band with, they said, look, do you fancy kind of coming back and doing some stuff? And I'd been writing some songs whilst I'd been travelling. So when I came back, yeah, we sort of started, and so 15 years later we were the same, pretty much the same guys. We were the same guys that I'd gone to school with. Our drummers change. You never, just so you know, in terms of your drummer, you're never going to, if you're going to be a band, you're never going to have the same drummer, because they're off doing stuff. They're a different breed apart. But yeah, actually we ended up having the same drummer for 10 years, but that's by the by. So yeah, I didn't go to university. I wish in a lot of ways that I had, because I think I would have learned, you know, had a great deal of fun. I've gone to university much later in life. I'm now doing an MA in creative writing, as I said in the webcast, and I'm just cramming this knowledge and just enjoying, and it's feeding into my creative output massively, and it's really helping. So I certainly don't regret not going to university, but I think it can only have helped. I think some of the stuff that I did travelling, you know, call it the school of life, whatever you want to call it. So the most famous person I've met, okay, that's a good question. Well, I've met lots of people. So when I was working with the big band, you know, or touring with bigger bands, so the script are Irish. So I met, like, you know, U2 and people like that, because the scripts are huge in Ireland. I mean, they're huge everywhere, but they're huge in Ireland. So you know, and Irish people, you know, wherever they are in the world, they come together. So I met U2 in New York. You know, at different shows, at shows that you might do, for example, like a Glastonbury show or whatever. I played basketball with Dave Grohl, who's from the band Foo Fighters. That was one of my favourite experiences, because he asked me what limey meant, and I knew the answer, you know, because if Dave Grohl asks you a question, you better know the answer, and it was quite a difficult question. And just so we're clear what a limey is what Americans used to call us, or still probably do call us. And the reason they call us limey is when we were coming over in the boats, we used to put limes to stop scurvy, which is is a disease that gets you. It's a lack of vitamin C that you get when you're on the sea because you haven't got any vitamin C. I'm not explaining this very well. Anyway, so I had this answer for him, and it was great. And then we played basketball, and I let myself down badly. And you know, I've met loads. I used to manage a guy from a big boy band, not One Direction, Union J. So I met lots of people through him. Met lots of actors and lots of people. You know, the thing about meeting famous people is that what you learn very quickly, you desensitize. So you meet someone famous when in your early career, and it might be a shock, and it might be like, oh, I can't. But then you soon realise that we're all the same, and that these people are just trying to get along just as much as anybody else is. I mean, I suppose I mentioned again Justin Bieber on the webcast. I met him very briefly backstage at a thing, and he was just very, very lovely. And that's another thing, is we're so awashed with stuff that we read, you know, on social media, or, you know, and it really influences us against people or for people, you know. And actually, you know, a lot of that is to be taken with a pinch of salt, if not ignored wholesale. I think a lot of people are not the way that they're portrayed on either in the media or on social media. So that's a big lesson that I've learned. But yeah, you know, so famous people, you meet them, and some of them are not nice, because some famous people are just like normal people. You know, we're all essentially the same, and so some of them are nice and some of them aren't so nice. But are they nice, or is it that I just, you know, I'm not compatible with them? It's probably that I'm not compatible with them. Luca at Ken Stimpson, that is a good question. What do you do when a song flops, or it doesn't make it onto the hit parade, as we used to call it, onto the radio, or, you know, makes it big on Spotify? Well, look, first of all, let me explain to you how it works. So people come into the studio, an artist will come into the studio, and they will write a song with you, and then they'll go off, this artist, and they'll write with lots of different songwriting teams, and then they'll look at all the songs that they've written with these various songwriting teams, and then they'll assess which ones will go on their record. Now, what we call that is a cut from a songwriting's perspective. So if a song gets on their record, we'll call that a cut. We've got a cut. So not getting a cut is kind of what we would call a flop, as in, we've written a great song with this artist that we really like, and we didn't get it on their record, and that's a real shame. So that's what we kind of call a flop. I suppose the one for me that was the biggest disappointment was we worked really hard on a Liam Gallagher song. Liam Gallagher, by the way, it was in a band called Oasis, and they were huge in the sort of, they basically owned the 90s. He was doing he did a solo record about maybe released it a year ago, and we worked really hard for this song for his album, and I thought it was a shoo-in. I thought it was absolutely brilliant, this song, and I thought he'd love it, and he heard it, and the feedback we got was that he loved it, and then it didn't make the record. And I think that was probably the difficulty, because when I was growing up, Oasis were a big deal, and actually Noel Gallagher, his brother, gave us our first break. He let us use we went and recorded our first record at his, so there was that kind of connection, and so it would have been absolutely amazing to have, that would have been brilliant, and we didn't make it, so that was really difficult. But you have to kind of roll with that punch and say, well, you know, c'est la vie, whatever will be, and maybe we'll get them the next time. But yeah, and the shame of it is what will that song ever, you know, that song will never be released. So you've got, I mean, I've got hundreds of songs, honestly, that have never been released. I'd probably say, you know, you have if you're lucky, a 5% hit ratio in terms of the songs that will get cut. So do I think work and learning have been worth the effort? Well, I think those two things are very separate. So you've got your work and your learning, and they're also completely entwined. So first of all, you learn from your work, because when you're working, you're going to learn just intrinsically. You're going to have to learn, even if you're shutting off your ears and not listening. You're going to have to learn the things that you're going to do. But actually going to a sort of a seat of learning like a university or something, that I think can feed into, you know, so for example, a friend of mine's just become just doing a popular music degree down in Brighton, and she is learning so much about all the other aspects of her work that she wasn't good at particularly before. So she was great at melodies and she was great at lyrics, but then she learned all this production stuff. Now that opens up a whole new avenue for her, because she can suddenly produce her own music and she can make it sound exactly like she wants to make it sound like. So the more strings to the bow that you can bring to any creative industry that you might be interested in, especially in today's market where everything is so it's so difficult to make a way in this saturated market. You know, there's so many people in line, you know, either in front of you or behind you for the same job, the same position in a creative industry. I'm not trying to put a damper on it. It just means you have to be better, which is exciting because you have to learn more. So if you can clamp on a university degree or an MA or whatever it might be, or a BTEC, you know, you're going to be, I think you're going to jump ahead of the people, you know, because your knowledge base, if you can produce and write lyrics, and you've learned how to, you know, play 3 instruments instead of 4, and I'm not saying instead of 1, I'm not saying you have to play them to an 8th grade standard, but if you can play guitar, piano, probably the 2 best ones, and a bit of drums, and if you play guitar, you can always play bass anyway. You're going to be ahead because you can do it all, you know, and then you can produce as well. And I'm not saying people expect that, but if you can do, and this is the important thing, just to talk about that for a second. You know, people they say, well, you're a bit of a jack of all trades. You have to be a master of all trades. So if you're going to go down that route, don't be a jack of all trades, be a master of all trades, because I think people kind of think, oh yeah, but I'll do a bit of that and be quite good at it. But actually, no, if you're going to do it, do it. You know, be a finisher, finish it, do it. That's my opinion anyway. So I can't remember what the question was, but yeah, no, learning and practical sort of skills that you'll pick up working. You know, listening is a big part of that. Actually, I think most of us talk to, you know, we in our conversations, we're constantly waiting to talk when what we should be doing is listening to exactly what these people are saying. Especially if you've found someone that you want to extract knowledge from, you know, and they're willing to talk. And everybody loves talking about themselves. Look at me, you know, they really do. So, like, if you're going to extract some knowledge, then, you know, you really should listen, and don't always be thinking, oh, I know what I'm going to say. I'll say this because that person might think I'm really clever if I say this. Don't, you know, just listen. Just let it all come in. And that's a big mistake that I've made in the past. You know, you can hear that I love to talk, but, you know, I had to learn to be a great listener. And I don't even know, my wife may say that I'm not a great listener. I'm getting there, you know, but it's far harder to be a great listener than be a great talker. So one thing I'd say to you is be a finisher. I mean, I know from my own experience that I've had work that I've really not liked, and I've thought, I can't finish this, but I've finished it and I've learned something from it, and that's really important. So one thing I've learned is be a finisher.